Nobody expected the truth to come out this way. Not in a quiet hallway. Not in a moment when the cameras weren't even supposed to be rolling. But sometimes the most powerful stories happen when nobody plans them. The question was simple. Too simple. A reporter asked a Dodgers player about the team's unique salary structure, about Ohtani, about deferrals, about pressure. Just another routine conversation in a season full of noise. But what came next didn't sound routine at all. The teammate paused, looked up, and for a moment the world around him seemed to freeze. Reporters shifted. Microphones angled forward. Something heavy was coming. And then he said it. "I'm fine," he began quietly. "Even with the low salary. Even with 97% of it being pushed into the future, it's not a problem." The words didn't echo, they hung in the air, suspended like a story that wasn't finished yet. People blinked. Some frowned. A few even looked at each other, wondering if they heard correctly. Players don't talk like that. They talk about competition, performance, focus, not financial sacrifice. But this moment felt different. It felt honest. It felt raw. And it felt like the curtain had been pulled back on something deeper than baseball. The teammate didn't speak with bitterness. There was no frustration in his voice. No sense of being overlooked. Instead, there was a strange calm, almost a quiet pride. He talked about how playing for the Dodgers meant something bigger than numbers on a paycheck. How being part of a championship-run team had value you can't measure on paper. How the clubhouse energy, the bond with teammates, the shared nights under the stadium lights made every sacrifice worth it. And then he mentioned Ohtani. Not in jealousy, not in comparison, but with something that sounded a lot like admiration. He spoke about the energy Ohtani brings, the way the clubhouse changes when a player like that walks in. The way fans roar with a different kind of electricity, how the stadium feels heavier, in a good way, every time Ohtani steps onto the field. You play next to someone like him, he said softly, and money stops being the story. He wasn't glorifying struggle. He wasn't pretending that money didn't matter. He was simply explaining what so many fans never get to hear, the human side of baseball. The side where players make choices based on dreams, loyalty, and belief, not just contracts. The room grew silent. Even the reporter who asked the question lowered his notebook slightly, realizing this wasn't just another quote for another article. This was a window into the soul of a teammate who understood the bigger picture. As he continued, you could almost feel the weight lift from his shoulders. He talked about growth, about patience, about trusting the journey, words you don't usually hear in a sport built around statistics and instant judgment. He explained that deferrals didn't scare him. That future money didn't feel distant or uncertain, it felt like an investment in the life he was building. A sign that he believed in the team just as much as the team believed in him. You can call it low salary, he said with a small smile, but to me, it's opportunity. The sentence landed harder than any fastball. Because opportunity, that's what every young player chases. Opportunity to prove themselves. Opportunity to belong. Opportunity to leave a mark that goes beyond numbers or headlines. He talked about walking into Dodger Stadium every day feeling grateful, not cheated. Feeling motivated, not limited. Feeling like the future, deferred or not, was still his to shape. And the more he spoke, the more the room transformed. What started as a question about finances turned into a conversation about mindset. About resilience. About being part of something larger than yourself, something only a few athletes ever experience in their careers. And then he finished with a line nobody saw coming. If Shohei can commit to the future, he said, so can I. Simple, powerful, unexpected, because in that moment, it became clear, this wasn't a story about money. It wasn't about salary caps, payroll strategies, or deferred percentages. It was about leadership, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that leads by example, not by attention. It was about what happens behind the scenes. In the locker room. In the dugout. In the silent corners of the stadium where cameras rarely go. It was about belief. Not just in a superstar. But in a team. A mission. A shared destiny. As the interview wrapped and the reporters drifted away, the teammate stood there for a moment alone, thoughtful, steady, peaceful. He had said more than he intended, but exactly what needed to be said. And somehow, the air felt lighter. Because every fan who would later watch that clip, every person who read that headline, every viewer who clicked the video, they would hear more than words. They would hear loyalty. They would hear humility. They would hear the voice of someone who didn't care about spotlight or envy. Someone who simply cared about playing the game he loved. And as the sun dipped behind the stadium, casting long shadows across the field, one truth became impossible to ignore. In a world obsessed with numbers, sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us that greatness isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in heart. And on that quiet afternoon, when a Dodgers teammate spoke from the soul, he didn't just answer a question. He revealed what it truly means to believe in your team, your future, and yourself.